All right, hey there, folks. Well, with the world going just a little bit bonkers right now, I figured it was more important than ever that I keep bringing book tour to you. So, welcome to Russ's Rockin' Rollercoaster, intriguing interviews with creative minds. Well, I'm all about horror and sci-fi these days, so I couldn't think of a better guest for tonight's show, V Castro. Violet is a two-time Stoker-nominated Mexican-American writer from San Antonio, Texas, now residing in the UK, where she is right now. She writes horror, erotic horror, and science fiction. She's also written tie-in fiction for the Rebel Moon and Aliens franchises. Welcome, Violet.
Hello, thank you for having me, and hello, everybody.
All right, good to see you. All right, just a heads up to the folks at home. Feel free to send any notes or questions you have for Violet in the chat box during the show, and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, Violet. So, as we always do, we're going to start at the beginning.
Yes.
Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, well, I was born in San Antonio, Texas. So hot, dry, and lived there most of my life, traveled a bit, with a military father and a military stepfather.
Oh, okay, okay, whoa. There's already a lot. There's already a lot going on right there. So hold on.
Hmm.
Don't skip over the good stuff. All right, so let's go back.
Okay.
All right, so you're born in San Antonio.
Yep.
So what was the lineup there? Was it brothers, sisters? Was it just you? What was the lineup at home?
So I am one of four girls. So it's me, Violet. I'm the eldest, of course.
Uh-huh.
Jade, Scarlet, and Rose. I know the names.
There's a theme.
So
There's a theme going on there.
a theme,
I'm sensing it.
exactly,
Sensing a
exactly.
vague sense.
Yeah. So one of four girls. But there's a 10-year gap between me and my other sister, like the next sister.
Oh, so
So
you're
I
10,
grew.
so you're 10 years older than the
I,
second oldest.
yeah.
And how old, and so what's the age gap between the sisters? So two, three, and four.
And then there's five, and then there's like 2 years. So it gets smaller. But now that we're grown women, we really can relate because
Right.
I left home at 18.
Okay, so hold on. I'm gonna stop it. You're skipping over
That's
all the
okay.
good, skipping over the good stuff. So hold on. So you're how many years older than your youngest sister?
A lot of years. No, so I will be 46 in July, which I'm not ashamed to say. I actually like being a woman of a certain age. And then Rose, she just turned 30.
All right, so 16 years older than your youngest sister. So when you guys were growing up, so you're 10 years older than number two. So you guys never went to school together. You always had your own life. So what was that like? Did you guys, because of that gap, was it easier to get along with them because there's no competition? Like how did you, what was it like? What was the dynamic at home?
Well, I was like a little mom. So, I think because of my culture, there was an expectation of me to, help care for the children, which I did. I also like cooked and cleaned and, was like, which led to me at 18 saying, peace out
Later.
and leaving and leaving for school to go to Philadelphia, because I just, it was like, is this going to be the rest of my life? And at that time I was like writing poetry and
Yeah,
doing
I want to get,
poetry.
I want to get
Okay.
into that. And we're going to, but I want to, there's more stuff there. We're going to unpack. All right. So you're in San Antonio. You're the oldest of four, and you're, sort of de facto like a second mom,
Yeah.
right? So you said your dad was in the military.
Hmm.
What
Yeah,
branch?
Army. So my biological father was Army, and then my stepfather was Air Force.
Okay. So how old were you when, so your folks obviously split up. How old were you when that happened?
I mean, he was in and out of our lives. She remarried when I was about 11.
11. Okay.
So there wasn't like a real, it's just he was always just there or not there. So
Was
there
that
wasn't a clear demarcation of what was going on.
was that because of the Army, or was that because of him?
him.
Right. Okay. Okay. So sort of, not a reliable father figure in the.
Not at all.
So what is that? I mean, I'm a child of multiple divorces. By the time I was 23, I had attended three of my parents' weddings. So
Wow.
so been there. So does that, you know, did that lead to sort of, was it lead to, being nervous or confusion, or do you just sort of say, well, that's just kind of you just rolled with it? Like, how does that affect you?
I think if you've read any of my books, then
Hmm.
yeah, it fucks you up.
It does
I
kind
mean,
of,
I
right?
write horror.
Hmm.
I'm
Mhm.
perfectly normal.
Yeah, right.
No trauma at all
Oh, nothing to see
to
here,
work
folks.
through.
Uh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think, when you're young, you don't really understand the effects. It's not till later on when
Right.
you start having your own relationships
Yeah.
and you are trying to decide what you're going to do with your life. And then if you take it even further, which is really, telling is when you become a parent.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's
So,
not the kind of thing that I learned about until I was much old. Well, it's like a process of growth and
absolutely.
understanding of oneself.
So let me ask you, so your dad was in the army and he wasn't around, inconsistent presence. Did the military component of his life, did that affect you in any way? Did you like, what did you think about that? That your dad was did he ever serve? Like, was he in combat or was he just stationed in the US? Like, what was that?
No. Yeah, I mean, we lived in Germany for like a few months, but that was it. And then we mostly moved around in the US. But again, he wasn't really there a lot.
Right. Okay.
My parents were young parents. They were
Sure.
19 when they had me.
Fair enough. Fair.
Um, and so I think when you have kids really young, so I'm a parent, I mean, it takes everything. I can't even imagine at 19 having a kid. You don't know yourself. You don't know
Sure.
your ass from your head. And then, be pushed into a situation where you have to actually have the awareness and the stability emotionally and mentally to like raise another human being. Um,
Yeah.
he just didn't have that, and my mom did the best she could
Right.
with, the person she is.
So when your mom remarried and your stepdad came into the picture, she clearly has a type. Right. So was that more of a stabilizing presence?
No, he
No.
was not a good person. He wasn't very nice to
No.
me or my sister Jade.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so, it was kind of one of those things where I think it was a marriage of convenience. And, again, I left at 18 because it was just like, well, why am I
Right.
going to stick around for this? Why am I going
Right.
to,
Right.
um, there's got to be more out there.
Right.
And
So,
I knew that if I stayed, I'd never leave Texas.
right. Right. So, talk to me about your heritage a bit.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm Mexican American. Both of my biological parents are Mexican American. On my dad's side, I'm second generation. On my mom, I'm like fourth. On my mom's side, my great grandparents were migrant workers. Um, so they worked the fields.
Right.
On my dad's side, they emigrated. And I'm not sure what his dad did when he first got here,
So,
but
did you grow up?
um,
Did you speak Spanish in the home? Was that?
no,
Oh,
because those generations, like I asked my dad actually one time, I was like, well, I understood why my mom's side didn't speak to me in Spanish. Well, there's a whole generation of us that didn't. And it's just because, well, you're American, you have to assimilate. You need to be American, you need to speak American, you need to look American as much as you can look American.
sure.
Um, And on my dad's side, he's like, well, when he came here, he couldn't use the same restroom as other people. He hated that. So it's kind of, again, that desire to assimilate, that desire to prove your worth. So I didn't speak Spanish
Mm,
growing up, and I think it did me a really big disservice.
yeah.
My mom speaks Spanish because now a lawyer, and she actually helps immigrants.
Oh,
And
wow. That's great.
yeah, she's doing that now
Oh,
with everything that's happening.
wow.
Um,
Wow, what a great thing to do.
yeah, yeah. She didn't go to law school till her 40s.
Wow.
So yeah. But my culture is incredibly important to me because I almost feel like it was something that was, very, very um, all-encompassing growing up. So like, the music, growing up in a neighborhood where there were lots of immigrants and
Right.
illegal immigrants, and, the food and family, the music, and being close to Mexico. It's not that far.
Right. So let me ask you that. So just geographically, so you're not, you're close-ish to Mexico, but
Mhm.
you have this sort of, how can I say that, this, kind of hodgepodge of factors going on, so you've got you're living at home with sort of an unstable parental situation there because your dad and then your stepdad, but then you're surrounded by folks who are of your culture and heritage, and you have these shared cultural touch points. So, did that give you a sense of community, of belonging, of identity, or did you kind of feel more like, did you feel a sense of maybe being on the outside looking in because you didn't speak Spanish? Was it a little bit of both? Like, what was that like for you?
No, it was very common, I think amongst us, like some people spoke Spanish, some didn't. I remember the middle school I went to, hanging out with the group of girls, which actually inspired Goddess of Filth, the group of girls I hung out with, some spoke perfect Spanish, some, nothing. We're a bunch of, Chicanas with our brown lipstick and hanging out and listening to um, rap and Tejano at the same time. And so,
I'm
uh,
sorry, Tejano,
Tejano,
Tejano.
it's
So,
like a type of music. I always say it's Mexican country music.
okay.
But, it's like, it's Texan, it's
Okay.
Tejano.
What kind
Um,
what kind of rap was your thing?
Oh God, I mean, we were listening to stuff like Criss Cross
Mhm.
and TLC and Tupac and, Wu-Tang, all of that.
Wow, I like some Wu-Tang.
Yeah, so and then we had, of course, our Spanish music, but again, like, you know, and then you have country, which I grew up listening to country. One of my favorite films is Urban Cowboy from
Oh,
with
wow. I
I
haven't
love that
seen that in
film.
so long.
I love the music in Urban
John
Cowboy.
Travolta. Yeah.
But I just grew up with all these,
Oh,
it's this cultural mishmash that just like is
yeah.
here. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting, and it's
Sorry.
all kind of
Yeah.
inspired my writing and the stories I write.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a little bit. So talk to me about, so you've got three, so you go to school and then you've got responsibilities at home, you got three younger sisters, but you've got your own life. So you're hanging out with your friends, with your Chicanas, and you're listening to music. What else was like, what were you into as a kid? Was that it, or like what else was your thing?
Well, I had to have a job too. So I had a job since I was 16
Yeah.
because I had to pay for clothes and things that I wanted. I had to pay to go to Starbucks and and go to the movies. So I also had a job. Um
Doing what?
and yeah, I had my first job when I was 16. I was a bagger at HEB, and then I worked at like the Gap.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And so I've always had a job, and yeah, and then I wrote poetry. I would do poetry readings
Oh,
at Barnes
good.
and Noble, and I was just kind of like that, sad emo girl listening to, um
Uh-huh.
uh uh all this, sad kind of girly music as
Yeah.
I got older, like into grunge and, music you'd hear at like Lilith Fair and Meredith Brooks and
Uh-huh.
Sarah McLachlan
I
and
love Sarah
Mazzy
McLachlan.
Star.
I love it all. Love it all. Love it
And
all.
then I was like all ragey with like Rage Against the Machine,
Yeah.
Pearl Jam,
Oh
and
yeah.
Jane's Addiction and Alice in Chains and
You're talking my talk, girl. You're talking my talk.
yeah, so I was just kind of like that angry, like
Mm. I
you
know
know,
that. I know that gesture. Oh my God, it sends you
I was
right
that
back home.
girl in like
Uh-huh.
in high school, like
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
writing my poetry,
Uh-huh.
just kind of, trying to buy clothes from Hot Topic and Journeys.
Yeah, right. Oh my God, that's so funny. So were you back then, were you a reader back then?
Yeah, so I literally went from like reading Shel Silverstein and um scary stories to tell in the dark, like straight to Anne Rice and Stephen King and Kuntz and all of that. Like there was no Goosebumps, there was no
Right.
R.L. Stein. It was just, 0 to 100.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Um, V.C. Andrews, all of that. I just went from,
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right. So you got your on, so you got your angst on, you had your emo, your angst, and your had
yeah.
all this rage and didn't know what to do with it. And then finally 18, you said, peace out, I'm later. So you go to Philly. What are you doing in Philly?
Yeah, I went to Drexel University
Okay.
and I worked there. I worked there. I worked like 3 jobs. I got my degree in political science and history, degree that's like, what the fuck did I put myself in all that debt for?
Yeah,
Um,
no kidding, right?
killed myself. And then after I had to get a job to pay the loan, so I worked for a real estate investment trust.
Oh, really? That's my I'm a real estate guy.
Yeah, yeah. So I worked for a REIT
It's fun.
and just doing office stuff like in the legal department. My mom, always wanted me to go to law school, so then I ended up um, working
I'm
part-time.
willing to bet that I'm the only person you'll ever talk to who know if you say I worked for a REIT, I'm probably the only person who know what
Who
that
would
means.
know what it is.
I do know what that is actually.
Just reading contracts all day, like mind numbing. I worked part-time at a law firm and I just knew that's not what I wanted to do.
All right. So how did you get yourself over to the UK? How did that happen?
Baby daddy. I met someone while I was working and um I just, was like, oh, I can't stay here because he was there for a project. Do you want to come to England? And of course, I was like 24 years old. I'm like, oh, yes, of course I do. This is like a dream come true. And, having unresolved issues, like, yeah, just take me away. Let's
Yeah.
go. Um, but again, when you're young and you think you know it all and you have this fairy tale romantic idea of love as opposed to what forever really means and what
Mhm.
commitment really means and what having a baby really means. So I had my first child when I was 27
Right.
and and yeah, so I met him at 24, then we moved when I was 27 to UK or 28. He was 6 months old. And yeah, I've stayed.
So you just have you have one kid? You have multiple
I
kids?
have 3.
Three?
So the
Oh, wow.
relationship didn't work out, and I
Okay.
met someone else, got married, and had 2 more children.
Okay. So you've been pretty much in the UK for the last 20 plus years.
So my older boy is almost 19, so like 18 years.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Okay. So I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you either keep or kept and this is a total pivot, so I'm switching
Yeah.
gears on you. That you keep an altar in your home to perform rituals.
Yes.
Oh,
So I am a
I want to
practicing
hear about it.
bruja. I'm
Uh-huh.
a practicing witch and Santa Muerte devotee. So, I grew up Catholic, but also a lot of superstition. So, like a lot of my books have folklore, urban legend. There's a lot of talk about demons and kind of spirituality. Growing up, it was just a given that there are things out there, that there's La Llorona, there's La Lechuza, that, this happened and all these supernatural things and Mal de Ojo. My mom performed, that, she had someone perform on me the egg ritual for Ojo when I was sick as a little girl. So you grow up with that knowledge, or I would say belief, that this isn't the only world.
So I want to ask you about that for a minute. I'm fascinated by it myself. Is it, and if at any point I'm inelegant, I'll apologize. But so with
Okay.
religion, for example, many folks who grow up religiously or in a religious home, they're told that there's God and you're supposed to do certain things, and they kind of bobblehead and they say, yes, okay, and maybe they know some prayers and they say a thing, but there's really no true emotional, spiritual connection to it. They just kind of do the thing because, all right, I stand up when I'm supposed to stand up. I say the words when I'm supposed to say it. They talk about God, but there's no real connection there.
Mhm.
Now, with what you're talking about, sort of, there being this other realm, other world, other forces, whatever they may be. Was that something for you where it's just sort of, all right, I'm told it's there and I say the things and I do the things, or did it really penetrate into you? Did you internalize it as, no, no, like no joke. I don't know what's there, but there's some boundary between us and whatever that is, but that's a real thing and there's stuff going on. Did you really believe it, or was it just sort of like it's almost like having a hobby, or was it no, no, like this is ingrained and I really believe this? Like, where do you fall on that?
Well, so I grew up Catholic,
Right.
and kind of that Catholic belief. And then my mom, my stepdad was Southern Baptist. And
Okay.
that is hardcore, man. Okay, like that's hardcore in Texas.
Wow.
And there's a really strong belief in like morality. However, that morality very rarely translates into goodness or helping people or
Yep.
making change.
Right.
And that has been my biggest problem with Christianity, because my ancestors were not Christians, they were pagans. They they worshiped other things, they worshiped nature, they looked after their environment. I'm not saying they were perfect, because they were, tribal, and they did fight with each other.
Right.
However, um, uh, the active oppression of Christianity and the hypocrisy of Christianity just it just got to the point where I just couldn't believe anymore. I couldn't look at the world and think like, really? Are we fucking kidding? Are you joking me? Like, we are killing each other in the name of, like, well, your God said this. Well, my God said that. Well, my prophet said this. Well,
Right.
no, I mean, it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
And you know, I think Christ had a lot of good teachings, and they've been completely twisted and bastardized, but so
Yeah.
did, like, any prophet who's tried to teach just how to be a decent
Person. Mhm.
fucking person,
Yeah.
a human in this instance, and help people.
Yeah.
Um, it's just become like a power grab.
Un, un,
And a system of
unfor-
oppression. So
un,
that's why I like Santa Muerte. Santa Muerte does not care if you're gay. Santa Muerte does not care if you are trans. Santa Muerte does not care if you get pregnant and you know in your heart that you cannot afford to have a child, and you decide with your own body not to do that.
Right.
Santa muerte. And, all of these old belief systems don't judge like that. And it's all about, well, now as a modern witch, it's all about personal power.
Right.
It's all about harnessing your own energy. It's all about saying, you know what? I want my life to look like this. It's not up to that person, that person, that person. It's not up to God, it's up to me. And I'm going to open myself up to whatever there is to make it happen. Um,
Wow.
and I don't believe in Satan or Lucifer in the well, Lucifer was originally just a demon. The word
Right.
demon, the Greek is translation is spirit. It's not like pitchfork in hell. And
Yeah.
so for me, there's a lot of things that Christianity has gotten wrong. And for me, having a different set of beliefs, it's all about having the best life for myself, being a decent human being for others, contributing something in this world that's lasting and good and helpful, being the best mother I can be, partner in this flawed state, and going forward.
Good. All right.
I'll
Good.
never be perfect, but I don't have to be as long as I try,
That's for
you
sure.
know. And that's what I get from being a witch. And I'll fucking hex you. No, I'm kidding. And
I'm
I'll
really,
hex your ass.
that's it. I'm really
A
trying to be a good person.
bitch.
Burn if you don't do what I say. Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. So let's get into the other stuff. All right. So talk to me about, so you started writing. This is what you do. So you
Mhm.
write in a few genres: horror, erotic horror, some sci-fi. Now they're all a bit different, but there's some overlaps. I want to start I'm going to start with with sci-fi, and we're going to get into the other stuff. So, as an author, what's the appeal of writing science fiction?
Mm.
Were you a fan of it as a kid? Did you read it, watch it? Did you come to it later? Like, what's your
Oh
relation?
my God. I loved, so I wrote an aliens novel,
Mhm.
Vasquez. I loved alien. Look, I'm f from that generation. Like I said, I'm going to be 46 in July. Where, I mean, you turn on I'm watching Elvira,
My,
titties out,
my my kid just watched it the other
like
weeks ago.
titties out, like all these crazy films. I'm watching Chud at sleepovers. I'm watching Argento's Demons. I'm watching The Exorcist. I'm like looking through the little things of Skinamax. I mean, going to Blockbuster and I mean, I did actually a TikTok about this. It cut it off on Instagram because of the reels, like
Uh-huh.
the limitation. But, I said, and I was talking about modern romance book covers, how I'm just like, what the fuck is this cutesy like cartoon thing compared to like in the 80s where it was just like you knew.
Hmm.
You go into Blockbuster, you knew you were in the horror section. I mean, I would make a beeline and you're just like, oh, that's so like, look at that. That's so gnarly. Just like the Nightmare on Elm Street
Oh,
covers and the
I love that
the
movie.
covers for everything were just great.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm watching these things from an early age, but I loved Star Trek. My mom likes Star Trek, and
Uh-huh.
um, I just love science fiction because like horror, there's no limitations, unlike Earth. And I think because I had such a troubled childhood
Yep.
and I had all of these unfulfilled desires and dreams and things I had to work through to become the most authentic and fully, expressive person. Um, Science fiction and horror allows me to do that. It allowed me to do that. It allowed me to expand my mind and think,
Yeah. You know, it's
well,
funny.
what else is out there? Because I mean, we're fools to think that this is it, that we're the only kind of sentient thing
Yeah. Yeah.
that exists. I mean, we could live in a multiverse. We don't fucking know.
I relate to a lot of what you're saying. My early years were, I'll be generous and call them wobbly. So as a writer, I find myself wanting to be, I don't want to revisit those places. I want to go out there. I want to go to other places where I can talk about other things, and I don't want to be boxed because I felt boxed in for so long. I don't want to be boxed in. So interesting. So when you write sci-fi, what's the appeal of the, I get it as a fan, as a writer. What can you do you want to keep going in that genre? Is it something you just sort of dabble in from time to time? Like what's your goals there?
Mm. So I'm drinking this water. It's a sparkling water in the
Hmm.
UK. Well, I think it might be US. It's called Liquid
Liquid
Death.
Death, I see that.
It's like it's like the best sparkling water.
Okay.
Um, it's best can. Again, I can just do whatever the hell I want. I get an idea. Like I just dropped yesterday a novelette that I'd been thinking about, and it's an erotic tale of vampires in space.
Okay.
You
Oh,
know,
ooh.
so
Ooh, okay. I'm there.
yeah, so
I'm
it
there.
just dropped. It's paperback and ebook. And it's called Planet Tepes. And it's basically, I take the whole Nosferatu narrative
Right.
and make it into erotic sci-fi horror,
Okay. Oh,
where,
ooh, ooh. Hang on to that thought 1 second because I have a very specific question about this. I've been waiting.
okay.
Just a quick interlude for the folks who came in a little late. If you have any questions or comments for Violet, put them in the chat box and we'll get to the end. So I want to talk specifically about, so you write horror and you write erotic horror. So for you, how do you distinguish between, let's call it traditional horror and more broadly, and erotic horror? Just get into there's nuance there. Talk to me about that.
It's very simple, explicit graphic sex.
There you go. So not so nuanced.
You know,
It's horror with a lot of naked people. There you go.
doing crazy things. So like Planet Tepes, there's um mermaids, but the mermaids don't have fins. They have tentacles and orifices, and I'll just let you kind of.
Fill in the blanks there. Okay, so hold on. So you talked about so not just vampires, but vampires in space. So here's an interesting thing. So well, interesting to me.
Because think about it. Where did these vampires
Where did it
come
come
from? They
from?
need total dark. If we go through the like lore of Eastern Europe, and I touch on this in Planet
Right.
Tepes, where they need darkness. Space is dark.
Yeah.
Space is like all these environments, right? Different environments, different gravity, different suns, different moons, different cycles. And so in Planet Tepes, it's kind of like these vampires, Vlad the Impaler, he was not human. They came to Earth to scout, and
Right.
he went to this courtly ball in like, what year did I send it? In like the 16th century, and he meets my protagonist. Then I fast forward to like the year 2100 in London, and then
Mhm.
but basically they're like an alien race on Earth, seeing
Mm.
what they can do. They're a parasites species.
Yes. All right. So let me ask you about that specifically. So vampires are sort of, are its own sort of interesting subset within horror. Why vampires specifically? I mean, you could write about any kind of, monsters, creatures, but why vampires?
Because they're sexy.
Okay. So, okay. So you say that, but why are they sexy?
Exchanging a block because there's a closeness to it. There's a seduction. There's a desire to keep your host kind of coming back for more. There's a sensuality.
Right.
The neck is an erogenous zone. The where the, in the thigh, all these other places you can
Right.
drink from, the wrist. It's just very sensual and brutal. And, I just enjoy it. I just like it. It's fun. I did this TikTok about it. Why, people, so Mortal Pleasures. There's a lot of people that hate it. It's like my lowest rated book. Some people are like, the writing is shit. And oh my God. Or some people are like, warning, this is the most explicit thing. And I read cock 50 times. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that's the point, and I said in my TikTok, like, I don't want to have to write Latina stuff. I don't want to
Right.
have to write white stuff. I just want to write a story.
Right.
And, I think, part of being so lowly rated, well, like it's like Amazon and Goodreads, the
Right.
ratings are so
Bizarre. I know.
like literally they're 10 points off. You're like, okay, so do you like it or you don't? I don't, look, reviews aren't for me, but um I was like, okay, because I like to read them just to get feedback. How can I improve? Like, same with editors. I hate editing, but I love editors. I love them because I feel like after every round of being edited, I'm a stronger writer. So I read them just to get feedback. And if there's something that's consistent, then I know that I need to work on it.
Right.
Um, but I think a lot of people were disappointed. They were expecting this, like, because it's a real Mexican historical figure.
Right.
They were expecting this, like, very Latina kind of romantasy that was contained. And I just went ham and I went wild. And that's okay. Maybe the writing is shit. I don't, whatever.
You wrote,
But
you did your thing. You did your thing.
I just did my thing, I'm human. But the pink agave so far, I love one review for the pink agave that made me chuckle. It was like one review on Barnes and Noble, and it's the pink agave and other stories. And this is for writers out there, I think. It's not about the reviewers or whatever, but for the writers, how you have to take them as a grain of salt, and you can't internalize reviews. You got to just. So the review was, I really can't give this more than 2 stars. So, this novel is so incoherent. The chapters make no sense. I was like, it's a short story collection. There's no chapter.
Oh,
So I was
you
like,
got you gotta love people. You gotta love them.
it does say it's a collection, but whatever.
So I want to go. So all right. So
So
hold on.
for writers,
Yeah.
honestly, if
Yeah.
you're any writers that listen to this, honestly, if you get that review, don't clap back. Don't get
No.
you might get in your feelings for a second, but seriously,
How about
they're
it?
for readers. You did your thing, you know yourself. You just move on to the next thing and just it's all if you love it, you're gonna keep doing it regardless.
So let me ask you something. So it's an interesting point that I think you make. Having been out on, book tour for a long time, and I travel kind of in three genres, right? I do the sci-fi cons, I do the horror cons, and I do kind of the mystery crime and thriller cons. So I get different kind of points of view. And over time, the idea of having sexuality in fiction has almost gotten like it's I find fiction's gotten very repressed in that sense. Like you're not in so many genres are like you're not allowed to do that. You're offensive. You're triggering me because two adults got naked. Like that's never happened in humanity. Like I'm so offended. Meanwhile, you're gonna go home and watch porn or whatever you're gonna do. I don't care. I don't care what you do. Right? Like, and they get so like worked up about it, and you're taking the opposite stance of, look, this is who we are. It's part of the human experience. Hell yeah, I'm writing about it and I'm not holding back. It sounds like what I'm hearing from you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If I feel like, and look, some of the books, it is gratuitous because it is an erotic tale.
Right.
But some of it, like I wrote a crime novel And this woman's been alone for a while. Excuse me. And she has needs.
Yeah.
She meets this guy and um he's an enforcer, and for the first time she's kind of like dragged into this world and she's attracted to him, but she's also attracted to the cartel leader because he's exudes something. She's been on the dating apps, she's met all these like limp noodles
Right.
that are just kind of like stand for nothing. And here she's meeting these guys who are dangerous, and I'm not trying to glorify it, but I'm just showing that nuance of being a lonely woman. What does lonely look like? That was my point of it. What does lonely look like? What does loneliness look like when you're so deep in grief and you just want something? You just want to feel alive again. And then there's this guy, two guys that present themselves. Um, how is that any different than saying, I'm gonna go on a fucking bender.
Right.
I'm gonna go do something dangerous.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that.
Sex is dangerous. It can be.
It absolutely can be. Um, so let me ask you, and this is just a stray thought, and I don't know if there's something to it. I was just thinking out loud. Do you think that because honestly, porn has become so ubiquitous that and so extreme that many readers think you pushed it so far over here that when I'm reading, I don't want that because it's super intense over there. So when I'm reading my sci-fi thing or my crime or whatever, I don't want all the gratuitous because it's over there and it's so intense that it's almost dehumanized that I don't want that's not my reading pleasure. Do you think that's has something to do with it?
I don't know, because again, I write it in context,
Right.
Again, um, in Planet Tepes, for example, she's I don't want to give it away, but again, that loneliness, that haven't have been with someone
Yeah.
and looking for it, or, again, just people want to get it on sometimes. It
Hell
just
yeah.
happens. And it's not like, oh, sir, my pipes are broken.
Yeah,
Can
right.
you look? It's not that kind of,
Oh,
you
and I don't
know,
have any money to pay you.
exactly. It's not like that at all. It's literally
Yeah,
real scenarios
yeah,
that people would find themselves in.
absolutely, absolutely. So it's
In one of the books,
okay.
what book did I put it in? Oh, I put it in the straight romance novel, which has no sex because I want it to be like my supermarket book.
Hmm.
But I put real life messages that I had received on the dating apps, like that guys had really sent me,
Yeah,
and real exchanges
right.
because they were just like, "Are you joking?" Um,
Wow.
and just to show that part of life.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
All right.
yeah.
So real quick. So I want to go back to something we talked about just earlier.
Mm.
You wrote something in the Aliens franchise. Now, I love Aliens. It's one of my favorite movies ever. I just absolutely love it. So what was it like to be able to write for that franchise? Like what did you try to bring to the table within your Aliens book? Because I
I
just
was the first Latina to write for that.
wow.
And the fact that Vasquez, who is one of the most iconic characters,
Yes.
people question her sexuality, people question her background. She has all these one-liners that are
Yeah.
amazing. She's got this body. She's with the boys. Um, she's you know, but she dies. That's it. Like
Yeah.
that's it, right? She's
Yep.
not like Ripley where you get bits and pieces and
Yep.
da da da. And so I wanted to write about it and give her that, okay, she's Mexican, so like some of the things I did to foreshadow, we're coming up to Easter, um in my culture. Mexican culture, her culture, we do things called cascarones. And basically, you save up all your eggs. People
Okay.
ain't going to do this year. You take your eggs,
Right.
but when you crack them, you just crack open the top,
Right.
right? You dry them out, then you fill them with confetti, and then you color them
Oh,
first. You know, the
I've seen
Taz
those.
dye,
Yeah, I've seen
fill
that.
them with confetti. You put on top tissue paper, and then you go around and you crack them on people's heads.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what that was. Okay.
Yeah, cascarones.
That's good. All
It's
right.
to foreshadow the eggs in her life. So she's doing this. She's hunting. She's got a bunch of cascarones and she's looking
Oh,
at her friends and she's like,
cool. Oh,
an onslaught. And it was a foreshadowing of the cultural of the egg
right.
and the egg she
Oh, I
encounters
love that.
later.
Oh, good on you. Oh, I love that. Good for you.
And then, there were certain things I couldn't change that were
Right.
a little stereotypical, like, oh, she's a gangbanger in LA and she
Right.
was locked up and she's got a teardrop.
Right.
They're
Right.
like, that's canon. They wrote it. You can't do it. I was like, all right, crack knuckles.
Right.
If we're going to talk about those stereotypes, then we're going to talk about police brutality. We're going to talk about racial profiling. We're going to talk about violence against brown women. We're going to talk
Yeah.
about all these things. And so I put all of that in there to
Awesome.
counter kind of the character she was given,
Right.
to
Okay.
explain why she might have made these choices.
Right on.
And, and then how she met her best friend and
Okay.
obviously, the book, they're like, well, it is an aliens book.
Yeah.
You've got to have
Some
aliens.
aliens. Yeah.
It's
They're
like
gonna have to show up.
it's like
They have to
in
show up at
Jurassic Park.
some point. At some point.
Hello,
Yes.
are there going to be any dinosaurs on your dinosaur?
Yeah,
So
yeah. All
he
right.
does.
All
But
good. All right. That was great. But now it's a time for a special segment on the show where we
uh-oh.
spin the wheel. On the wheel are seven possible
Okay.
categories
Okay.
that fit tonight's theme. Wherever it lands is what you get. And the categories
Okay.
are Dinner is Served, The Reanimator, Soundtrack of Your Life, Apocalypse, Kiss of the Damned, I Am Rocket Man, and Baby on Board. All right. So you ready? I'm going to give it a whirl. Wherever it lands is what you get. All right, what do we got for Violet? Let's
So
see. We
cool.
got Kiss of the Damned. Dude, this is a new one that I created just for tonight. So I don't even remember what it is. Let's see. What kind of madness did I come up with? Okay. You have fallen madly head over heels. This is the one in love with a vampire. Knowing that the love of your, well, life is undead, do you stay in the relationship or do you jump back into the dating pool for someone who is, alive?
I stay in the relationship and I force him to make me into a vampire.
Really? Wow,
Yeah.
you want to be undead.
Hell yes.
Hell yes. Okay, I love that.
Yes.
Hell yes, bring it on. Okay, fair enough. Okay, that was great. But now we're gonna pick your poison. I got three choices for you, A, B, or C, but I'm not gonna tell you what's behind each one. A, B, or C.
See.
Okay, well, we have a theme going on here. Interview with a vampire.
Yeah.
You're getting ready to write a new vampire novel and find that you want an insider's take. You have the opportunity to interview an actual blood-sucking vampire eager to tell her story. But you never know how the interview will go. Do you pass on the interview knowing you may not walk away with your soul intact, or do you press record on your device and listen to her tale of the undead?
I'm going.
You're all in. Yes, you're fearless with the vampires. Okay.
I do not do things in half measures.
Oh,
If you
very
read my books.
very clearly you do not. Okay, fair enough. Okay. So, now I'm going to give you some truth serum. I got 10
Mhm.
questions for you. Answer
Yeah.
quick. You ready?
Hmm.
Favorite flavor ice cream?
I don't like ice cream.
Oh my God. I'm canceling the show. Okay. Wow, that's a first. Wow. Okay, fair enough. All right, what's one food? Well, the second one I think answers the first one. What's one, and you can't answer ice cream. What's one food you will never eat ever for any reason? Can't say ice cream.
Intestines.
Oh, okay. Bucket list destination anywhere in the world.
Oh God, there's so many. At the moment, Cuba or the Maldives or
Okay.
Mexico again.
Scariest movie you ever saw?
Oh shit. The Poughkeepsie, I can't pronounce it. The
Poughkeepsie?
Poughkeepsie tapes.
Okay, I don't know that one. All right. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Immortality.
Okay, thematic again. Do you play any musical instruments? And if not, which one if you could?
I do not, and if I could, it would probably be um the piano.
Okay, fair enough. Cats or
I
dogs?
like Beethoven, so
Okay, fair enough. Cats or dogs?
dogs.
Favorite cocktail?
I don't like cocktails.
Oh, favorite drink?
Okay, champagne.
Champagne. Okay.
But I do, when I'm in the US, I do drink margaritas. It's just the UK, they don't have like a nice,
Okay.
proper Mexican array of
Well, I
tequilas.
remember at Nikon, you had quite a few.
I was done.
Yes, you were. You can see a live performance, sports, music, theater, whatever, any seat, any venue, any time in history. What's your choice?
Oh my God, what? This is just, oh, Woodstock.
What? Okay, good for you. All right, if you could get a continuation of any canceled TV show ever, what would it be?
Mindhunter.
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, I've had Mark Allshaker on the show a few times. Yes, yes, he's great show, absolutely. And a great book as well. All right, so we're gonna take some questions from the audience. We got a couple here. So one thing, here's a comment for you, just so you know. FYI, writing on immortal pleasures is not terrible. And for that person on Pink Agave, you should have a sir, this is a Wendy's moment.
Thank you.
Okay, and then question for you. If you could give your young writer self a message to help you with your writing journey today, what would it be?
Um, don't try to be perfect and don't try to be anyone else.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, fair enough. All right, that was great. So what I'm going to do is I got some stuff to share for everyone, so bear with me. I'm going to share my screen and then we're going to wrap things up. Just hang on one second. I was going to do a little techie things here. Okay, and okay, so Violet, talk to me. Tell me what we're looking at here.
Yes, we are looking at the Pink Agave Motel, and I will be in AuthorCon very soon in Williamsburg, and I will have copies of this. It's basically a short story collection with a novella in the center entitled The Pink Agave Motel. That one is like, it is about obsessive love. It's about desire. It's these creatures who are hybrid cannibal vampires. You have also, in my culture, snakes are very sacred, and there are, you know, serpent people. And we have a brother and sister that have rattles, like rattlesnakes. But their rattles are placed in, you know, places for fun
So this is
in the
like,
Pink Agave Motel. And the Pink Agave Motel is a place where all the crazy, unwanted creatures have come to gather um, to feel accepted, to feast, to have a good time. And humans pay to either be pleasured, people who go there for end of life care. So they don't want to just, wither away and die. They want to experience some sort of ecstasy on their dying breath. And it's basically just like a fun house. Every room is different. Every room is inhabited by a different creature offering different services. Um, And the payment is the greatest currency, flesh, blood. And then the rest of the stories, I love Cabin in the Woods, so I had to put like a merman story.
Mhm.
I have, some flash fiction. I have a story about tarot. I have a story about Sekhmet.
Okay.
Uh, just it's all about these weird and wonderful creatures and romance and heat and desire and just living this experience.
All right. Wow.
And so that's what it's about. It's wild, it's crazy, and big up to Clash for publishing it because it's a wild ride. Um,
All
so
right.
yeah.
All right, folks, you hear that? If you're into wild, uninhibited tales, the Pink Agave Motel is absolutely for you. All right, thank you, Violet. So, as for me, I'll encourage everyone to check out Trigger Point. It's the latest novel in my ongoing series
Ooh, I
featuring
like the
Royal
cover.
Private Eye Angela Hardwick, who in my mind is part Blade Runner, part Doctor Who, and part John Wick. And I'm really excited to announce that Trigger Point was just announced as the Black Phoenix Reviewers Choice 2025 Book of the Year. So I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back for that one. I'll take it. So that
Yay.
was fun. In Trigger Point, and just to be clear, there's 5 books in the series, but they're all standalones. You do not have to commit to the whole series. They're all standalone sci-fi thrillers. In Trigger Point, Hardwick, for reasons I will not explain, has recently been released from prison, and she takes on a case. She's hired by a very nasty pimp whose best earner has just been killed, and he wants to find out who did it. But for him, it's really personal. Hardwick is not thrilled about taking this case, but she feels she has no choice. So she takes on the case and she gets hooked up with this sort of sketchy detective who's got some baggage going on there. Meanwhile, Hardwick's partner, Eric Whistler, is caught in some sort of a temporal loop. He keeps phasing in and out of matter with these fragmented messages about what's happening, and Hardwick cannot figure out what's happening or why. Meanwhile, and you can see right here on the cover all these fracture lines, the fabric of space-time is literally cracking. It is disintegrating before our eyes, and all these pieces are tied together. And Hardwick's got to figure out what's going on and stop this madness before it's too late. Otherwise, it's game over for everyone.
Ooh,
So
I like it. Look at those stakes. They're high.
thank you. Yes, yes, yes. So very excited. So check out Trigger Point. And just to be clear, I reintroduce the world building and the characters every time out. So you jump in, you know exactly where you are, you know who's who. So again, you do not have to commit to the whole series. You can just read them one at a time. Trigger Point's available on Amazon and published by Crazy 8 Press. All right, folks, that's our show. I want to thank so much Violet, who's came all the way from the UK, who came over here, who stayed up extra late to talk about her life and horror and sci-fi and all of her great and wild tales. And I want to thank everyone else who's watching. And as always, everyone, please be gentle, be kind, and generous of spirit. And for God's sakes, defend democracy, defend the Constitution, our health care, and our Social Security, which we fucking pay for. All right, guys. That's
Yes.
Yes, thank you. That's it for me. I'm going to be off next week, but I'll be back on the air Wednesday, March 19th with a batch of new episodes. So that's it for me. All right, guys. I'll catch you next time. And bye now.